Hello and welcome to What's Up Doc. Today we are going to be talking about activities and athletics, and I'm going to hand it off to Dr. Baker to get us started.
Great, thank you for joining us. Laurel, thank you for joining us as well.
Yep, hi.
I think I'd like to ask a question first of all. When we think of athletics and activities, and especially high school, although this encompasses K-12, but you're both are high school students, what comes to mind like when we think of athletics and activities, and maybe what you've been involved in?
Yeah, for me personally, I have been involved in drama all 4 years, so that's like the big one that comes to my mind. But then also just hearing about football and basketball and cheer, I'd say those are like the three sports that I hear the most about. Yeah, but the big one that comes to mind for me is drama and theater.
Yeah, for me, it would definitely be ASB. I've been involved in that for almost my whole time here in the Bellingham schools, and also cheer, same as Rihanna, just cheer, football, basketball, choir, drama, all those great activities in athletics.
Great, and I think you've hit upon a couple things. One is it can be broad. It's like visual performing arts, it's athletics, so teams, and then it's clubs. Mm-hmm. And part of it is after school, and part of it sometimes is during school. Like drama class probably is both during the day. And Laurel, you're our new director of athletics and activities. We hired a few years ago. Just when you hear those terms, or what comes to your mind?
I think for me, what I think about most is I see athletics and activities as an opportunity to connect with school. And so I fundamentally believe, and I think we know, that when students are engaged in things outside of classes, they're more likely to be engaged in classes. So I see athletics and activities as it's places where people can find their passion. It's where they can develop into an athlete or develop into a critical thinker, or any of the outcomes that we talk about a lot with the Promise. I see that as it's maybe your way in to then get more engaged in the entire school system. Which
is great. I think it's interesting that often athletics and activities is referenced as extracurricular outside of the school day, and our belief in our district is not quite as simple as this is the school day and this is extra. It's we believe athletics and activities should be part of every student's experience, and we should provide that. When you guys look at the outcomes, there's 17 outcomes that this community has said this is the type of student we expect this district to develop. And it doesn't necessarily have to be just during the school day. When you look at those, is there any outcomes that stand out that our athletics and activities and performing arts helps promote at a pretty high level in your experience?
Yeah, just one thing that pops out to me is in the character section, leaders, collaborators, and team players. Just it hits such a broad scope of who is developed in these athletics and activities, and who just do awesome things around the school. And eventually these leaders, collaborators, and team players take that into the classroom, and I think that's super cool.
Great.
Yeah, also critical thinkers and problem solvers. I think I'm going to be referencing drama a lot in this conversation.
Which is great.
But I know at C-Home at least, it's pretty much all student driven, so we build all of our own sets, and the students are very involved in making the costumes. And that doesn't always go the way that we think it's going to go. There have been a few times where I've been helping to build a platform, and we just read the plans wrong, and then we're like, oh, this does not look correct. So then we have to go back and think, okay, where did we make a mistake, and how can we fix that mistake in the most time efficient way possible? Mm-hmm. And of course we have staff supervisors, but it is a lot of students solving problems.
Yeah. One of the things that we've tried to do over the last decade plus is look at which students are accessing athletics and activities and after school, and what are the barriers, and try to take barriers away, both for students to be able to participate, and because it's been our state funding model is it's extra, it often means we're always trying to find resources because the state doesn't fund it. We use our levy as an enrichment levy to try to help fund, but we're still always trying to find funding. That's one of the barriers. There's others. And I'm wondering, Laurel, if you could just speak of some of your experience these last few years of things that we've done to try to increase access for kids as well as families and parents to see their students, their kids perform.
Well, I think one of like the biggest pieces, and it was before I was in this role, was just removing fees associated with athletics and activities. And it's not 100% perfect because you can remove like, okay, it's going to cost you $50 to play X sport, right? Or you can remove, we're going to charge you this amount to get into a game, but there's still other hidden costs that we are still actively working on trying to remove. So that could be things like to participate in certain sports, you need certain uniforms that you would bring just to try out, right? And so we think about, okay, how could we support students who don't have those things already just so they can take that first step to do the thing? And so we've been able to secure some grant funding, the foundations help, PT, like lots of different people come together around that because it's like, okay, we know a kid needs cleats. Let's make sure we get them cleats. Some other things that we've really worked on is to engage in sports specifically, you need sports physicals. And for some, that's no big deal. They go to the doctor every year or every 2 years and they can get a sports physical. But for others, like having access to healthcare is a really challenging thing. And so we've worked really hard with a number of clinics in town to set up opportunities to make sure we get students in to get sports physicals. Because without a sports physical, you can't even step on the field. So those are two things that I think of that have made a big difference. And then the other thing is just helping, really encouraging our teachers and our support staff and like everybody who gets to work with kids in our school district to remember that like sometimes all it takes is an invitation, right? So like a student who maybe never sees themselves as somebody who would do drama, for example, if we just invite them to come check it out and see it, that can be like they never saw themselves doing it, and so the invitation can just remove that barrier and then they're in.
Yep.
So that's another big part of it, and that doesn't cost anything. It's just like invite.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to hear any reactions you have to any of that from how we improve what we're doing, how we improve access, what barriers might still be there, just any reflections you might have.
Yeah, I think the part about sports physicals, that's something that I had never even like considered, but it's definitely a barrier for some students, and I think it's really important that you're working to minimize that barrier. Yeah, so that's really cool. And then just another thing is there are a lot of sports and activities that happen, so finding time and space for all of the things to happen, especially when just like on Tuesday we had that snow, so practices had to move inside and everybody was like trying to figure out where they were going to be, so they all had a place to practice.
Yeah, I think just enhancing the accessibility to sports has been very useful in our schools, and I'm super thankful for the opportunities that I've gotten being on like track and being a part of the cheer team. It's been awesome, but I can see like one area of improvement being like timing. How can, because that often conflicts with like transportation for students as well, and that's just one thing to keep in mind when trying to schedule millions of buses and just different field opportunities and stuff like that.
So, I'm going to turn it to you to see if there's any questions that you want to surface on this topic, and as we continue to think about how we've improved, but what are those next steps that we do? We're just always open to figuring things out. But anything on your mind in terms of comments you want to make or questions that you might have had for either of us?
Yeah, I guess just what factors go into deciding what activities and athletics will be offered for a specific school year?
Good question. Let me say a few things, and Laurel will try to give help me. Part of it's tradition, like what are things that we've always done. Part of it is what our state has, the association, what they sponsor. So there's certain sports and activities that have a lot of infrastructure and history behind them. We also try to always be open to what's the student interest and be innovative. Like I remember when I first got here, an area that we didn't really participate in, but it's such a great place, is around sailing and boating. And really the culture was more, that's not safe, we shouldn't go out and do that, it's not safe. But we were able to change that, and working with community partners and thinking of Lakewood and Western and out of that, and open that up. So we're trying to always open up our thinking. We've also, by building new facilities in our fields, has been able to expand what we can do and create less tension around space, as you brought up. And then student voice also plays a role in terms of clubs and activities. But what would you add to how we decide? Why is it what?
Well, I think so. One piece that there's like, you have your athletics piece of things, which are your seasons, and then certain sports take place during certain seasons, and then through our state association, the WIA, we compete, right? So you've got that, and that's pretty prescriptive. Like, these things are going to happen at these times. And then there is that community interest and the student interest piece. And so if we have students saying, you know, like, one thing we hear about a lot is boys who want to play volleyball, right? And so we talk about, okay, like, we hear from those students, and this is at the middle level and at the high school level. And so we think about, okay, you've got this request, and you have a handful of people asking for that. Could it work? How could it work? Who would they play? What would it conflict with? What unintentional consequences might come from adding something like that? And then it just opens up lots and lots of questions, and it takes a lot of time to unpack, like, okay, how are we going to do this thing, and how would it all fit in? And then in terms of a club, like, that's one thing that's really wonderful about clubs, and Caleb, you likely can speak to this given your understanding of ASB. Like, anybody can go to ASB and say, I want to do this thing, and if you've got an advisor and an idea or a mission, we want you to start that thing. And so a lot of students are able to pursue their passions because they're like, okay, I've got 3 friends and we all love this, and we're going to make it happen. And then before you know it, it's a club that meets every week, and it's like something that makes a big difference in the community.
Does that sound right, Caleb? Is
Yeah,
that how that works?
completely right. I know, just being a part of ASB, we've approved so many clubs, so many great clubs that have done amazing things around our school, and it's just super awesome to see how just like taking that little like step of initiative gets people to do like super cool things, especially like environmental club right now. They're doing awesome things with getting composting, making composting more normal around our school.
One of the, as you're talking about student voice being able to influence what we do, this is registration season for our students, and especially I'm thinking of our 8th graders who haven't been to high school and they're about to register for classes, and then they'll start to go to hear about activities and athletics and, you know, different things. As you think back to 8th grade maybe, and now you're, you know, seasoned juniors and seniors, any advice that you would give our 8th graders that might be listening, or their families, about you know, what you, and it could be like things you wish you knew then that you know now, but any advice as those kids are coming into high school and thinking about how to get involved?
I think just taking that leap of faith and just getting into something. Just involvement is so key in high school, and I wouldn't be in the position that I am without getting involved. And I'm just super thankful for all the opportunities, like being a part of choir, being a part of ASB, being a part of track, cheer. It's taken me to such great places, and kind of it allowed me to become more social and meet lots of great new people, lots of great new staff. Just super thankful for just being able to get involved. I'd say the big key word is involvement.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And with sports, it's a little bit harder because like of specific seasons. So if there are 2 sports that you want to play at the same time, you do kind of have to choose. But with clubs, there really are so many clubs out there, and I mean, just sign up for all of them. Even if you're like, I don't know if I'm going to like this, sign up, go to a few meetings, and just see what it's like. And even if you choose not to continue, you could meet some really great people.
Laurel, you've been a coach and involved in high school athletics and activities longer than this position, a long time. If we have 8th grade kids and families listening, any advice you'd give them or thoughts?
I mean, I really echo what you both are saying, and I think it's I mean, this gets at a barrier, but like for some students, when it's a barrier, and then I think there's other ways to get involved, but like some of our sports, for example, we have a robust club system in town, right? And so sometimes you'll have, if you're an 8th grader and you're like, oh, I've been playing soccer, like I'm ready, I want to try out for soccer, I think go for it, do it, and then have backups. Like if, let's say that you don't make the team that you wanted to make, like don't let that be the thing that closes your door, basically. Like that, there are so many opportunities from my perspective, and it could be, maybe it's a club, or maybe that club doesn't exist and you start it, but if something doesn't work out the first time, try and find a trusted adult, find somebody to help you get engaged in something else. Because I think that sometimes happens for our 9th grade students. Like it's overwhelming, there's a lot of things to see. So you choose one, and then you have this one experience, and it maybe isn't as positive as you'd like, and then you're like, oh, I'm done. And it's like, no, actually, like something totally different could be right for you. So that'd be my just additional advice.
Before we wrap up in just a few minutes here, coming into this, were there other things that were on your mind of questions or wonders or things that you think would be helpful to to talk about?
Yeah, just quick question. How do you think athletics and activities are going to be impacted next year, considering maybe potential budget cuts?
Great question. The I don't know they'll be greatly impacted, in part because, as I said earlier, the athletics and activities, extracurricular, is already not part of our budget in so many ways. The state's, the state doesn't fund us, so as they do things, it doesn't impact us the same way as other type of funding. It probably slows us down a little bit in terms of every year we try to take that next step of how do we lower costs, increase accessibility, not have kids have to be selling product as much. We still haven't got rid of that, but we've gotten better over the last decade plus. But trying to be smart about what can every team or club do, and how do we get adults to help fund it, and whether that's through fundraising or PTA or the district contribution. So it may slow us down in terms of those next steps, but we have a strong belief, because of those 17 outcomes, that athletics and activities are a great way to develop the characteristics that this community has said, and so we want to invest and not pull back. So I can't say that it won't impact it at all, but it's probably going to slow down our next steps, more so. Anything that comes to your mind?
I just think our goal is to increase accessibility and remove barriers, and so I agree. It could there are likely going to be things that we can't take on that we would have liked to have done, or like some of the additional things that I think that would make our programming even stronger, like whether that's coaches and advisor trainings, or like things that would be more than we are doing. I think that could be a place that we just aren't able to go as full on as we'd like to.
Yeah. And we'll see how it plays out. No, I
Yeah.
can't promise
For sure.
that,
Yeah.
but that's our hope, is that you wouldn't see any big dramatic shifts in what we can provide. But Marianne, anything else that was on your mind coming in?
I think all of my questions were answered, so
Okay.
yeah.
So in closing, as we think about athletics and activities, I really appreciated to our 8th graders coming in, get involved, like sign up for everything. I think is a great, even if you don't end up doing it forever. And then as you're seniors, so as you think back on your 12 years with us, 13 years,
Yeah,
or however
yeah.
long you've been with us, you've been here for a while.
Yeah.
And you think of athletics and activities, what will you walk away with? Like, that was probably one of the most powerful experiences I had in Bellingham Public Schools, at whatever grade level, that kind of is in the spirit of athletics and activities.
Yeah, I think for me, it would have to be in middle school, all 3 years, I was part of the floor exercise and dance team. And that was a really great experience for me, because I got to kind of learn how to choreograph dances, and then how to memorize those dances and perform them. And it was a really fun, I think I played a lot of sports, and I think that one was my favorite, so
Great.
yeah.
You're still with us for a while.
Yep.
And you might have already mentioned it earlier, but what's something that for you is going to stand out as that was a pretty important experience?
I think just the camaraderie of being on the cheer team. It's super fun. It really helped me grow as a person, and especially this year, we came home with the first place trophy. So that was
Nice.
definitely a memory that I will have for a really long time.
Nice.
So.
Well, I know both of you are on the advisory committee of the superintendent, and one of the topics we often talk about comes up around athletics and activities, and so appreciate your sharing today, but also over the past year and 2 years for you. And I think, Laurel, you'll agree that this, it's so not extracurricular. It's so core to our work, and when we find that students get involved in performing arts and athletics and clubs, their development of a whole person, which the Bellingham Promise calls out, goes up. Excitement about being in school goes up. Involvement, it's a pretty win-win-win.
Yes.
And so we're going to continue to try to figure out how we increase access and opportunity. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah,
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.